Hi, Mary.
Hi, Kat.
This is Mindfulness with you, and I'm really happy that we're here. And quick questions first. Have you heard any feedback about the previous episodes that we have done from friends, from families, from anyone's that may have a chance to come across what we have recorded and shared?
It's a good question. It's a tough question because the only thing I have heard back is podcast is too long for 45 minutes.
Is that feedback?
Yes, I think feedback is part of communication. As we ask for feedback, we need to be ready to accept what comes.
Hmm.
Maybe it can make me uncomfortable, but I have to accept if I ask, I need to be ready.
That will be another topic if you are asked or if you're not asked. Um, but on the comment itself, often when I hear, either you call it feedback or you call it sharing observation moments, either between friends, between tango practice partners, romantic partners, family members, when you have that point, when you have that moment to hear what other people wanted to say about you, I find it that the content itself can be varied. It can, be under a format of what I would like to see as a compliment. It could be that, oh, you're doing so great, you're doing so well. Okay. It can come with a form of complaint. You're being so lazy. You are not doing this well enough. You are not, 100% devoted to this, as you have said. So it often get me confused. Are those really true format of feedback? And then if they are feedback, what should I do with it? And if they're not feedback, what should I do with it? And often I wonder, the reason I question those differences, like the compliments, they're simply a statement of complimentary on me, or a simply, complaint or nagging or ranting about me. What's missing in those statements is the why. And sometimes I wonder if that's the difference between feedback and compliment and complaint, is the why. I think it would really help if, when you're saying you're great at this, or you are great delivering this presentation because the slides that you put together was so interesting and intricately, weaved into the theme of what we're trying to discuss, and the way that you presented was dynamic and engaging. If it was provided with the why, I feel like then, the compliments or the complaints have a meaning behind it. Then it makes it somewhat easier for me to accept. So I'm throwing this question back to you. If you have received a compliment, if you have received a complaint, to what degree that will make you decide there is some value in that statement, and to pursue or to pull that value out of that statement from the person, what would you do to get more out of that simple, you know, you're not doing so well or you're doing great?
Thank you for asking this a long and complicated question. Certainly in life, not just in learning Tango or any other format of learning, when we think about feedback, very often we start with the intention wanting to grow from here to someone better self. Let's take Tango as example. If I'm learning a combination with a partner, and then I would ask, oh, how did I do in this combination? Where should I put, how do you feel about my movement with you, right? This is a ask about feedback. And my intention is about to make our dance better or learning better in this moment. So when I'm asking this question, I need to be really ready to hear because I'm sincerely wanting to hear. I'm not searching for an expectation. Say, if he says, "You're doing great, I love the way you move your body," now it becomes a higher quality feedback compared to, "Oh no, I don't like the way you shift your hips. Now I don't know where your weight are. If there's a disconnection." That's equally valuable. But if I put expectation, what I want to hear, then there is a score to a so-called positive feedback versus constructive feedback. Let's not even say negative feedback, right? Sometimes we always say, "Can I have some construction feedback?" Which means you tell me, how am I going to do so that I can become better? This literally means I intentionally want to be better.
I also feel what you've talked about is how, you receive feedback. And the moment exactly when you're saying, constructive feedback is, and I think it's smart to move away from, using the negative, because to me, a negative, again, simply just saying you're not doing well without anything to explore, to discover, for you to act upon. It's just purely a statement based on how the other person feels. So that's negative in the sense that there is nothing for you to act on. And the differences between negative and constructive is that there is something that you can do then based on these feedback. And I feel like, and that's, I think, I'm raising this one up. When someone gives you a negative statement, like "you're doing so bad, you're not doing it well, you're not doing it as I wanted," without the reason behind or without anything constructive, it feels to me that he is putting, or she is putting themselves on a higher level, like it makes I feel I'm inferior to that person because of that judgment coming from a more superior place of he's knowing it more than I do. He feels more than I feel. And that to me already moves us out of that equal relationship. Just as you said, you are in a partnership to discover and explore together. And you are ready to, as the recipients, to hear whatever that's come out of it.
It's
But
okay. And
it is,
now you
yeah.
can ask back. So, which part I can do better? Can you help me? Instead of just reacting with emotion of the statement, you can lead this into actionable feedback. If that person insists not giving feedback, then you can stop here. But the mindful way is, this is not personal. This is how they feel. They own their feeling. If they want to feel that way, let them feel that way. The only one can judge you is yourself. If you don't give them the power to put you under them, you won't give them the power. You give them power when you react to that statement.
I give them power when I react to their statement.
It doesn't mean you can't. You can. You react, you identify that emotion, and then you take a breath, says, "Okay, then how can I bring myself up to your level? How can you help me? Because I would love to be in a harmonious relationship with you as a partner at the moment through learning the combination, or in a discussion as a romantic partner, or even in a work relationship, even with your boss. Even if your title is different, but inner strength, you can be the same.
Maybe I'll take that very wise note to relate to a kind of a true tango story that I've encountered. And I knew that many people have encountered that. And I think very recently there was even a post circulating around about why did tango people like to get feedback so much on the dance floor? Like during the milongas, why do people say those things and correct me while I'm not even sure of what I'm doing? Or I know that something's wrong, but because of my limitations to controlling my movement, I was not able to do it. So essentially, why do people like to give feedback in tango? Which is not wrong, you know, if it's in a practice space, if it's in a mutually agreed upon situation, I think even it is okay. And I know it's going to be problematic. I think if it's mutually agreed to a degree in a circumstance, maybe feedback is okay in milongas during the milonga dancing between the two people, even though it's not, you know. So the question is, why do tango people like to give feedback so much? Why do they always feel like something they always wanted to say about the other person? And usually they're not something complimentary, not something great, you know, delightful moments of statement that we we are likely to hear. That's what puzzled me. And during the dance, usually, you know, the person I dance with would slip in feedbacks here and there. But what happened that time was that I was stopped during every song, almost after every one or two phrase, either being, you know, shake the hands as being you're too tense or you're not pivoting right. And I was stopped in the middle and being even demoed how to do pivots. And I feel very upset naturally. And despite the fact of saying this was enough, shall we just return to dancing? I feel inferior and not empowered to say, I wanted to stop. Was enough. I did not even walk out of the tanda, where now that I think of it, I should have done, which could have saved me from feeling even worse about it. I stuck that through, and I also continued through a second tanda where the same thing happened again. And I walked away from the dance and walk away from the milonga with a very sour and bitter feeling that I was such a horrible dancer, that I did not even know how to pivot right, that I was intense and I was not comfortable to dance with, and I was not a pleasure. There was so much negative feelings, and most of the time it's monologue inside me that has drowned me into a spot where I feel I should just simply stop, either going out, either continue dancing, or not going out until maybe I learn from, you know, my teachers, drilling my skills and feel better and confident about myself again. That's not really helpful. And I wanted to change that. Recently, I had the chance to dance with actually the same person again. But before I go to that part of the story, Mary, what would you have advised me to do if I told you that story right after the milonga? What would you have suggested me of bringing more awareness to even how I described the story, how I was telling the story, so that I will be mindful of, you know, on both sides of the feedback?
Okay, I think from hearing the story, I would say less of why people provide you feedback, more of how you receive feedback,
Mhm.
because this is important as receivers of the feedback, always remember, if you get the feedback, you have the chance to grow. So no matter what other people's intention, if it's just trying to put you down or letting you grow, but always remember, if you had this feedback, you have an opportunity to grow, no matter what.
No matter what.
It's about you. It's not about the other person.
This reminds me of something I've learned, I think, from another program, which is taking feedback as a gift. Doesn't matter if it's a lousy gift, it's a useful gift, it is a gift. It is someone
Yes.
who they want to give to you. And it's very interesting, and I think it's very kind for you to say, despite the intention, even if the intention is to talk down, to bring me down, to show that they know much about me, doesn't matter the intention. They're trying to give me a gift.
Yes. And this gift can be uncomfortable because you heard of growing pain. If you grow, you have pain.
Yes.
So when you get feedback, especially uncomfortable, you have room to grow. So be willing to be uncomfortable. Be willing to accept this uncomfortable gift is testing your capacity.
Mm.
It's about you
Testing my capacity of
growing.
How I can be different.
Yes, how you can be different. And I'm not saying you have to take every feedback, do whatever they told you to do, but just the attitude of a receiving, right? Action comes later. Because if you don't have the right attitude, then your action won't be right. You can be totally rejecting because your attitude is resentful, or you can be totally submissive and do whatever other people told you to do. However, first you take a breath. I mean, both literally a breath, but also there's a room between receiving the feedback to respond to the feedback. There is a room, a space for you to consider, oh, okay, now I can be different. It's not necessary you will be different. It's unnecessary. But you can say, does this help me to be better with this person? Very specific. So don't take it personally as a generic personal target or attack. You are a bad person, because take this specific feedback as to here and now with this person at this moment. So act only here and now with this person. After an hour after the class, don't think about it's about you. Because this will not happen if you are dancing with a different partner, right?
Yeah, this will not happen if I'm dancing with a different partner, for sure.
Exactly. So you shouldn't take it personally. It's not about you.
Or it's everything about me, except that it does not change who I already am, how I already dance, the foundation I already built. One feedback on one particular, either it's on the joints, either it's in the position, it's about that particular moment in the movement, how my body reacts. It does not negate of, in general, how my body moves. And I think that's the difference I came to realize, that it's everything about me, but it's everything not about me. And I think
Right.
what you've said was essentially peeling off also two parts. And we're focusing on the reaction parts, because they are how we react to the moment when the feedback was given, and how we react to the content of the feedback. So it's the emotionals and the intellectuals in terms of trying to feel how we feel emotionally when I receive the feedback. What is it, my body's telling me? And there is kind of the analytical part that going into, okay, what does that tell me? And I think my recent response, coupled with this recent realization, it has helped so much that when the same thing happens again, and thankfully it was at a practica, I actually feel I'm okay. Like, okay, this is a moment where he has something to say. It's just like we're having a conversation. This is a point where I should stop. I would pause and giving the mic back, give the baton back to the person to hear what he really wants to let me hear. And when I hear what he has to say, which is interestingly almost the same thing, instead of immediately going into that black hole of, oh, he's doing that again to me, or, oh, I'm so bad after, all these times, I I just hear it as it was. I obviously still had the reactions of, oh no, this is another moment of another gifting moment. Um, but I stopped there. My emotional reaction kind of stopped there. Even if I feel a little bit upset, and I give myself that, I went into the mode of exploration. So my intention, maybe not necessarily about, it is about growing, but maybe not necessarily growing at that particular moment that allows me to immediately react and be perfect to exactly how I was given the instruction to. It's more discovery, more out of curiosity. Oh, interesting. Here is a part in my body where I feel 100% great of moving the way I do, but it does not feel great to the other person. Why? What does the other person's joints feel through my joints, through my body? And I think leading with that curiosity gives me more space in terms of receiving more from the other person. And I think also it goes back to when you are having that opportunity to hear something from other person, how skillfully or how specific do you ask the questions to get the information out? That is a skill. And I think often when we say, which part am I not doing it right, may not be sufficient in leading the information out. So I'm curious, what are some of the skills, or what are some of the type of questions, or how we can lead the questions out of ourselves so that it makes it easier for the other persons to tell you, that's the source word I'm trying to point.
That's a good question because my personal experience, for example, I know one of my hip tend to sway out more. People have given me this feedback during the practica or something like that, then I can immediately say, yes, I know. I cannot change it because how my body is built. It's a defense response, but it's also true. But what I can say is, I'm grateful you told me that. I have been working on it for a long time.
Mm.
And I also discovered this is my forever problem. I'm still working on it. I'm not trying to defend myself. I'm just trying to help the other person to understand me. And I'm also expressing my understanding and appreciation of other person's feedback. Because at this moment, you want to bring the kindness and the acceptance into your conversation. But very often we love to defend ourselves. Oh, I cannot do this at this moment. Oh, never say thank you. I have heard many people upset about feedback is about the person who gives feedback and then were not appreciated, because most people don't like constructive feedbacks. The people will say, give me some time, instead of saying thank you.
And I feel like based on what you've just said, it derives from a self-awareness too of your limitations, of a fact that you are very much aware of. And to the other person, since they can't read your mind, they won't assume that they may assume that you are not aware of this. And to bring that the fact that you are aware of what your drawbacks are, will help the other person, hopefully, to give that so that you guys have the same context.
Yeah, it's to understand. So feedback is communication to understand, not communication to convince.
Let's spend some time on that, because often I think the conflicts that happen during those giving and take feedback moments is that it's very easily to escalate it to a fight, starting from a small argument, like you said, defend, offend, arguing and debating on other than bring kindness and acceptance. And I think that's the first important thing. I think taking a step back to say, I realize this is a moment for us to sit down and dive a little deeper into the topic. And let me start with thank you for bringing it up. I think that's a good kind of a strategy so that you set the tone going into the discussion. Let's not say this is a debate with kindness, with conscientious of that you are appreciating this partnership of discovery, of exploring together, rather than I'm right, I'm not there to listen, I'm going to convince you that I am right. So has that happened to you? Maybe let's stick to the tango example. Has that happened to you in tango practices? And how did you kind of successfully mitigate an escalated debate or fight into a constructive conversation and communication with the partner?
So I would take not just tango feedback. It's most of the time happens when two people have different opinions. And this is exactly, feedback is when you have a different idea you want to give, right? So overall, the overarching idea is about when you communicate, there's a difference. You have your perspective, I have my perspective. So be able to see another person's perspective, it means you widen your own perspective. It might be something you don't want to accept, but just seeing it, even without accepting, even without defending your right, because when we defend, I'm right, that means I'm not seeing yours. I don't want to see yours. I don't want to listen to your opinion because I talk louder about my opinion. And how does it make the other person feel? It makes the other person feel unseen, unheard. And in the communication, in any relationships, no one wants to feel unseen, unheard.
If at the time you are actually not ready to hear the perspective, or you are not ready to dive deeper into the topic, what is a kind way to communicate that to the partner without making them feel that they are unheard, and still making them feel that you appreciate having that moment to say no, maybe not at this moment. Maybe we can, shelf it or table it, but we can bring up at another time. To defer is not
to differ. Yeah. So the best way, I think, as a super communicator you can say, I would love to talk about this further because I would like to understand better. But at this moment, I feel I'm reactive to this idea, and I would rather take some pause so that I can come with better presence to listen more. And would you be up for it?
I think that is a very good kind of self-check or kind of a awareness advice to bring to myself, especially because it reminds me of so much fighting moments that I've had with especially romantic partners. And I do feel that, often when that happens, I feel awful about myself. I feel like I'm an asshole. So I think there is a distinction between how I react to others as an asshole and, I'm an asshole. So I'm not. And I want to reduce that moment as much as often. And I want to find a way when that happens, I know how to handle it, just like you said. So it sounds like that you have offered me a very powerful, or quite a few very powerful awareness tips to moments when I potentially may have a stronger reaction to what I'm about to hear. And he starts with taking a moment just to acknowledge what is going on, what is happening. It is a moment that someone has an intention to have a gift for me. Whether I will like the gift or not, that's up for debate. But when somebody is giving me a gift, I should be grateful. Even if the gift is maybe turns out to be useless later, that's another side of the story. Recognizing what is going on, recognizing what is actually happening at the moment is key, is the first step of a moment of feedback.
Yes, I think there's another important factor of feedback is really accept there's differences, different opinions, different perspectives, different feelings for the same scenario, different emotions. So we don't have to always convince the other what's right, what's wrong, or mine is right, yours is wrong, or you have to be the same as mine because we're in a loving relationship. We need to accept, recognize, and accept differences. So, like, for example, if you're not ready to even talk about it, you can say, at this moment, I need to just accept the difference. Maybe I don't need further discussion. I just need to accept, and that's it. Accept the difference, meaning I accept you have your opinion. And I appreciate that you share your different perspective. Now I see more.
I feel like that's another level of appreciation of diversity. And
Exactly.
it also reminds me of a kind of a famous quote, and I'm going to butcher the quote in my own words, which is, I may not disagree with what you're going to say, but I'm going to defend your right of every words that you want to say. I feel like that's essentially how we approach maybe not just feedback. And like you say, it could be any moments where a disagreement rises. And the disagreements often comes, like you said, it's different emotions reacting to the same thing, different opinions, different kind of touches on boundaries, different, understanding of issues. And when that arises, embrace the diversity. Either you open up the space, you allowed yourself to expose to the diversity of opinions, or if you're not ready for it, I think it's okay to accept the fact that there are differences. Differences do exist. I see very much value in a grateful or more open-minded approach to feedback. And I have recently also experienced from someone who's known as very warm and very open. We were just in a conversation over brunch, and we were talking about events and the events that, that person happened to organize with a team. And I feel like what that person has done so well is that I was still allowed the space, or we still was able to hold the space to continue the discussion without heat. 1 or 2 days later, that person reached out to me and said, Kat, I really appreciate you. I really appreciate the honesty. I really appreciate the conversations we've had. And I would like to apologize if I got heated, and get defensive into that discussion, which I didn't really believe that person had. And despite the fact, it was acknowledged that I may got into that defensive mode. I may not take away your chances of speaking and telling me more. And trust me, I want to hear more. So hearing that kind of feedback upon the feedback made me feel heard. And it's probably not much that I cared that much of how my feedback was received and acted upon. I think that gesture itself makes me feel great of being seen, being heard, being understand that I approached this, or it was understood that the reason I share feedback was because I cared. Because if
Yes.
I don't care, I don't have to say much about it. So on the receiving end, receiving such warm, kind, and grateful attitude, it has inspired me, or it has picked some sore points in myself that I think would have helped me to handle future moments when that happens. Either I am the one raising a question, raising an idea, raising an opinion, or being the one that's receiving the question, receiving the feedback, and receiving the answer. And there's so many things I wanted to say to my friends or to my romantic partners that, hey, I was an asshole at the moment when we had the arguments. And now knowing a little bit better and being a little bit more aware of what could have been done differently, I would like to do it differently.
So I want to give away one small tool when you give and receive feedback as well, is to try to bring your autonomic nervous system to the digest and the rest system, which is calmness. Because very often when we're in a fight or flight mode, we will give or receive feedback with defensiveness, because this is where the dangers are. They're not real lions. They're your imaginary lions chasing you. So when you give feedback, it's almost like you're attacking. When you're receiving feedback, it's almost like you are running away from a lion. And this is neither as a giver or taker of feedback is not good. So we need to feel the safety, both giving and receiving feedback. And how do we do that? Is to take a few deep breaths and just be aware of your body with your breath, like you already did for your own practice. And then when your mind is calmer, you don't have a lot of noise to becoming like machine guns. Then you'll be like one pistol, one target, specific. And when you receive, you're not in the defense mode anymore. You are more relaxed. Then you will take in the feedback as it is, not giving it colors or interpretations. That's called actually active listening, which is you listen every word attentively without thinking about how to respond to it. So the effect at that moment, when you both are in a relaxed mode, when you give and receive feedback, this same string of words will be much, much more effective. And that's the practical part of how to give and receive feedback that I want to share.
I appreciate that you emphasize so much on safety. And it's not just safety it's not just the safety space that both parties or all parties at that moment are feeling, so that they will either open up more or they'll be okay, feel safe to say, this is not the right occasion, we can table it. It's also safety on ourselves and how to create safety or bring back the feelings of being safe to then take the next step to one person is important. Because it's, how can I make other people feel safe if I don't feel safe in myself, if I don't feel safe around the people? And that level of safety is, it can only be controlled by myself. So I appreciate and I love that you're sharing a very simple, and what we have talked about in the first episode, take a moment, taking the breath, using the practice that we have done when we're alone, when we're taming our own beasts, to the moments where we have other people beasts to face and maybe to battle. So to prepare ourselves ready, we have to feel we are ready. And the readiness comes from a safe spot inside, internally, rather than waiting it to be given. So I really appreciate that level of feedback. And on that note, I think we have touched a lot about feedback, how we approach it, how we receive it, how we look at it from different perspectives, how we kind of feel okay, to say we're not avoiding it, but we will bring it up in a safe discussion. And overall, I think it comes down to, just like you said in the beginning, it's all about communication. And communication is not one and done. It's a journey to explore, and maybe looping it back. To communicate, to effectively communicate, is to bring more mindfulness and awareness of how we feel, how we want other people to feel, how we respect our own needs, and how we respect other people's needs.
Yes, I think it's doable. It's a practice we can always try in any occasions, because we talk with people often, I hope, unless you're mute. If you want to be cute, don't be mute. My friend always tell me
You
this.
can use your hands.
Yes. So I think, yes, be a communicator, being a super communicator will really give you so much opportunity to build good relationships, both, work, non-work, any kind. We interact with people, we're social animals. So bring that kindness, bring that compassion, not the judgment. Let's say when people are different, oftentimes we judge. But when people are different, bring compassion if you do not agree. Replace looking down upon someone with compassion towards someone. They may not have grown as far as you did. And that could be true. But bring compassion. And if they need to grow, they need love to grow. They don't need judgment to grow. So always feeling the kindness and check it when you communicate with people is to seeking understanding, bridging the gap, or is to defend for your ego mind. And with this, just a few awareness, then I think everyone could be on the path of being a great communicator and building good relationships.
Bring
And
love.
I'm practicing it.
Yeah, bring love and compassion, bring self-love and self-compassion.
Exactly.
Practice more. And this is our topic today, mindfulness with Mary on feedback. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for asking. Thank you, Kat. I really appreciate all your questions.
Thank you for saying that. And thank you for bringing kindness and gratitude to our discussion. And for those of you who have been listening, if you like this episode, feel free to subscribe, and we'd love to hear feedback from you. And hopefully you have some feedback to say about this episode on the same topic. And until next time, hope you're all well. Practice breathing.
Bye.
Bye.